Look, very excited to be here today to talk about the Greater Phylum project. This is a project that's, look, as Paul mentioned, has been around for the best part of 1,000 years. So it's been well understood, and mined over that period of time. The Phylum mine itself was closed in 1992, and there really hasn't been any modern exploration in this area. We picked up the ground late last year, and we've had two small drilling programs up there so far, 1,000 metres each, and we're now about to embark on a 4,000 metre drilling program within the Greater Phylum area in a very exciting part of the world. So just quickly on the board and management, as per the announcements last month, so I'm just really pleased that Ray Shorrocks has joined me on the board as non-executive chair. He brings an awful lot of experience, obviously, with his most recent success with Bellevue and Orteco. As you'll see, there's a bit of a Bellevue flair in there. I also have Steve Parsons in there as a corporate consultant, and of course Michael Naylor in there as my CFO and company secretary. So a fantastic team. And then not to mention, of course, my geologist being Eric Lundström over there in Sweden, who I've known for the best part of 25 years. We actually started as graduates with Boliden Limited in the north of Sweden, going back all that time, and have remained good mates up until now. Just a bit on the corporate snapshot. So 280 million shares on issue, a market cap of around about the $50 million at the moment. About $3.5 million of cash. We did a recent capital raising, a small one, when we announced Ray coming on board. And as mentioned, we have a 4,000 metre drilling program starting imminently in the next couple of weeks, which is around about $600,000. So we're well funded and going forward. So look, why invest in Alicanto? So I suppose there's four main points that I really want investors to take away from this presentation. So it's a great location. So the Greater Phylum project, it's located within Sweden's Tier 1 mining region of the Bergslagen. Now, the Bergslagen district is famous amongst geologists for being one of the most mineralised places on Earth. And I can justify that in a slide coming where we've got some pretty big projects in there, being the Zinkgruvan mine, which is operated by Lundin, which used to be operated by North back in the day. You also have Boliden operating in there. These are a nearly 5,000 employee company within Sweden at the Garpenberg mine, and of course the Phylum deposit itself, which was closed in 1992. A great project, being the second point. Look, we've had a major discovery, or a major breakthrough, I should say, with the discovery of the copper-gold skarn mineralisation at Wolf Mountain earlier in the year. That was quite distal mineralisation, but it really changed our view of what we were dealing with over there. I had a very excited geologist ringing me at 2 o'clock in the morning to tell me that he'd basically found rocks that he'd been looking for 25 years. We also had our drilling at the Lustibol deposit, where we found some absolute bomber grades of 9.5% copper, 16 grams per tonne gold, 285 grams of silver, 3.9 of lead, and 8.2% of zinc. These are grades that will weather any storm. But what we discovered was that the Greater Phylum project is not a VMS system, which is what it was previously believed to be. But because of the discovery of the copper-gold skarn at Wolf Mountain, we now understand what it is that we're dealing with. We've pegged a few other areas, and I think now we're up to about 13 targets within about a 15-kilometre radius, all with copper-gold skarn or polymetallic skarn, now that we know what we're looking for. And these are all at surface. And on top of that, we've also got the more than 70 kilometres of limestone-hosted mineralised horizon, which we've discovered, and we've also been out and visited and pegged ourselves. So this limestone is a very important part of the story, and I'll go into that a little bit more in a slide or two. But what that does is it acts as a perfect chemical trap for the copper-gold skarn, and also helps with us with our exploration. The third point being, look, great opportunity. As I mentioned, look, we're finding more targets all the time. So since we've made the discovery of the copper-gold skarn at Wolf Mountain at Lustibol, we're now up to 13 targets within this very small area. and it's sort of blown our ears back a little bit. We've got a 4,000 metre drilling program starting imminently in the next couple of weeks, where we're going to be targeting those things, and they also have high grade copper, gold, and some zinc, lead and silver at surface as well. And then just a great team and entrepreneurial board. So look, I mean, I can't talk enough about Eric. So look, he's got 15 years of experience in these systems and in Barry Slogan. He was Booleden's chief geologist. He's had 6 major discoveries for Booleden already. So when I approached him going back a couple of years ago to come in and give me a hand, I said, look, how about finding one for yourself? He jumped on board, and here we are today. Obviously with Ray Shorrocks and then myself, a little bit about myself. So I'm a mining engineer, and as I mentioned, I spent a good 5 or 6 years living in Sweden, and I managed a number of these big projects up there. So just talk a little bit about Sweden for those that don't know. So look, Sweden is a tier 1 mining jurisdiction, and I've worked in both places. I've worked in Sweden and I've worked in Australia, and they're probably the 2 most important tier 1 mining jurisdictions in the world. And to be fair, I love working in both countries. You know, they're fantastic places to be. So just talking at the bottom there with key infrastructure in place, you know, to be a tier 1 mining jurisdiction, you need to have accessibility and transport. You know, I've got roads, rail, airport, seaports, all within Kui of where we're located. We've got hydropower. You know, my power costs are ridiculously low. I've got water, it's free and it's fresh, no salt water. Communications is all high speed with internet and mobile phones, and a very highly educated workforce that is very pro mining. So it's important to understand those sorts of things. But on top of that, I'm only 2.5 hours drive from Stockholm. So when I want to get to work, when we're allowed to drive again, or fly I should say, 20 hours to Stockholm, and it's a 2.5 hour drive to get to where we are. But then talking about the Bergslagen itself with those high grade and large mines. So the Garpenberg mine there, so they've mined about 33.5 million tonnes. It's probably closer to 40 million tonnes now at those grades. Eric was a major part of the team, or the leader of the team, that actually found another 120 million tonnes. So this is a mine that was nearly dead and buried come at the end of the 1990s. Now have 30 years worth of production in front of them. Zinkgruvan mine that some of you may have heard of in the past, but then of course the phylum mine, which is zeroing in on the Greater Phylum project right next door to where they mined 28 million tonnes at some absolute bomber grades, 4% copper, 4 grams per tonne gold, 35 grams of silver, 5% zinc and 2% lead. Again, very much an all-weather type of ore body. So just zooming in further onto the Greater Phylum project, which Alicanto owns to 100%. So I won't go into too much detail in the targets because you can read those in your own time. But as mentioned, we've got up to we've got 13 targets now that we've got lined up, and the majority of these have come online since January of this year, which is a real testament to the work that Eric and the geos have been doing out on site. We've got over 70 kilometres of limestone-hosted mineralised zone, which is exactly the same limestone that has hosted the Phylum mine itself. And the other discovery that we've made is that we now believe that the Phylum mine was not a VMS mine, as I mentioned before, but is actually a copper-gold skarn deposit. So when we start looking at those sorts of things and the sorts of grades that we're seeing at surface, and then I'll also come into the next slide, which is the cracking the code at the Greater Phylum area. This is the reason why we're so excited, and this is what keeps geologists up at night. So again, I won't go into too much detail here because you can perhaps read that on your own slides. But as mentioned, we've got 70 kilometres of limestone mineralised zone, which acts as a perfect chemical trap for things like copper-gold skarns. Once we made the discovery at Wolf Mountain of the distal copper-gold skarn, we realised what it was that we'd hit at Lusterbull was also copper-gold skarn. And then when we started looking at other places such as Herden, Stone Lake, Birch Mountain, we realised, my God, we're dealing with exactly the same thing. But not only like what we saw with the distal mineralisation at Wolf Mountain, at Herden, at Stone Lake, we've actually seen proximal copper-gold skarn at surface, as well as the causative intrusion or the heat engine, which we believe was creating the mineralisation in the first place. So just a little bit on the drilling results. Again, I won't go into too much detail there. That's on the slides. this was probably the results that kept Eric up at night back in February. He was actually over here for the RIU conference that we were attending. And when he saw the photos coming through, he said to me that we are dealing with rocks that he has been looking for 25 years, and said that this is what gets him excited. So we've made made that discovery, and we've gone off. We've pegged more ground, so we've moved from 150 odd square kilometres up to 300 square kilometres of ground now. At Wolf Mountain, we have over 100 metres of distal strong alteration mineralised zone and disseminated sulphides. As you can see that on the right-hand side, this is our interpretation of what we're dealing with. We've got an IP survey which has just been completed and which is going to drive our next drilling that's coming up in the next week or so. Just on to Lustre Bull. Again, these were some absolute bomber grades that we hit in here. 75 metres from surface, 9.5% copper, 16 grams per tonne gold, 285 of silver, 3.9 of lead, 8.2 of zinc. Again, 75 metres from surface, never been drilled before, hosted within a limestone mineralised zone or limestone trap. So exactly what we're looking for. So just so I can demonstrate that, in Sweden it's not all beautiful green trees and grass. This is the phylum mine, which is right on the edge of our tenement boundary. With that direction there, we're looking towards the west. And as I've highlighted there within that white zone, that's the limestone hosted mineralised zone, which we share with Whitgruven, which is only about 3.5 kilometres away, which incidentally had 38% average zinc grades. It's mine life as well. Ongoing news flow. So as mentioned, 4,000 metre drilling program starting imminently in the next couple of weeks. IP surveys just been completed. We're interpreting those results now. That's going to lead into where we're going to be drilling at Wolf Mountain. We have EM survey, which will be starting in the next couple of days, which again is going to help us with our targeting over at the Headland project and Stone Lake project. 4,000 metre program, that'll take us probably all the way through to the end of this year at least, but we're expecting that, with some success, that we're going to continue on with that into the new year. So a lot of work has been going on this year. Had some, real success in cracking the code at the Greater Phylum project, and really looking forward to where we're going to be heading next.
Thank you very much, Peter. A couple of questions that have come in. You made a point about the breakthrough. You say it's a big breakthrough, that it's no longer deemed to be VMS deposits, but in fact the mineralisation is hosted in the skarn. What is the significance of that breakthrough?
Look, the most important thing about that is that when you're looking for VMS style deposits, you're looking in one direction. When you're looking for copper gold skarn, you're effectively looking in the other direction. So having that breakthrough, it's really solidified to us as to, we're having these super high grade grab samples at surface. There's the Phylum mine with super high grade copper, gold, zinc, lead, silver. But nobody over 1,000 years has been able to work out why this stuff is at surface and where are the other deposits forming. So now that we understand that we're dealing with copper gold skarn, we've got the 70 kilometres of limestone hosted mineralised zone. So and then we've got the zonations around the copper gold skarn that we can see at surface. It just makes it an awful lot easier for us to explore.
And if there's so much mineralisation around, which clearly there is and has been outlined and mined for so many years, and there's so many targets there as you've just spoken about, why hasn't it been drilled and explored to a greater extent in more recent times?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. So look, 1992 was when the Phylum mine closed. 1992 is also a very important date because that's when the law changed in Sweden. Prior to that, you had to be a Swede or a Swedish company to actually own tenements within Sweden. You've only got 2, 3, tops 4 companies that are quite large in Sweden that could potentially take on a project like this. But on top of that, you don't have a junior exploration marketplace like what we have on the ASX. So being able to go out there and raise the money, spend the time and put in the effort to actually work out what's going on in these areas, it just hasn't had that capability. And then on top of that, you've had the geologists have been out there looking for VMS. So now that we know what it is that we're looking for, all of a sudden copper gold skarns are popping up all over the place.
You have a lot of targets. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Are there too many?
Look, it's a fair question, and look, we had one or two targets when we first started the drilling last year. So we had Lustable and Wolf Mountain were our two obvious targets. Now that we've basically re-engineered the geology there, so we understand what it is we're dealing with, and we know where to look, all of a sudden they're popping up all over the place, but they're all within a very small area. They're all within a 15-kilometre radius. So the important part about that is that, look, I could go off and I could say that one is more important than the other, but in reality, I just simply don't know yet. But on top of that, am I not better off going off and finding 1 to 5 million tonne deposits sitting in the top 100 metres rather than chasing one deposit at 500?
And you would envisage at some point, if you were successful in establishing inventory, that they would all go through the same plant.
Well, exactly right. I mean, in my mind, you'd be looking for something like 20 million tonnes to justify building your own process facility, which is what we've done in the past. So, this gives me the best possible chance of finding those sort of tonnages.